Right. Most of you know that we've just come out with the micro PMU acupuncture needles. So this is just going to be a very quick recap of what you can do with the acupuncture needle and what makes it so different. So when you look at needles, you have liners and you have shaders. Traditionally, liners tend to be a long taper, which means the diameter of the needle is measured up here and the taper takes a long time to get down to the point at the bottom. And then it's a very, very sharp point at the bottom. You have your short tapers, which generally tend to be your shaders, and the diameter of the needle will stay the same for a lot longer, and there's a shorter area that is tapered down to the point, and it will be a little bit more of a blunt point than the liner. It won't be quite as sharp as this because they're generally used for shading. The new acupuncture is the diameter of the needle comes all the way down, and that tip of the needle is in a bullet shape. So this is a little bit exaggerated just so that you guys can see it, but you can see the difference. A liner is very, very sharp and comes down to a point. A shader is a little bit more blunt, and an acupuncture is actually a little bit more rounded or bullet shaped, as I called them. One of the things that you can do with the acupuncture that will allow you to do brows, eyes, and lips is called the pendulum motion. And that's where, if you pretend that this is the skin, you're actually coming in like an airplane, you land on the skin, and then you take off. So it's just a back and forward motion that produces a pattern like this. You don't see a dot here because I come down, land on the skin, stay on the skin, and a dot here because I lift up. You actually see a nice blended back and forth. You lift up, take off, lift up, take off, and you see a nice blended pattern. You don't see anything like this where you've got dots on the top and bottom, or that you come down part of the way and you fill in here and then you fill in here and you get this over between the two places that you've just tattooed. So the pendulum, you literally come in, hit the ground, and come back up, lift off like you're on an airplane to produce a nice even pattern like this. So the pendulum can actually be done on the brow, and it can be done starting from the tail, coming up, going all the way to the front of the brow, making the front of the brow very airy and very light. And then any areas along the spine line of the brow that you may want darker, you can go over again. The pendulum and back and forth can also be used to do stardust eyeliners. So if you've got your eye and you bring your pattern up, you follow your pattern up, and you do some pendulum back and forth here. A lot of people call it pixeling when they're going back and forth so that you can get that stardust look. The lip, you can go ahead and use the acupuncture to line the lip, and then you go ahead and do your pendulum inside of the lip. A lot of people are calling this the blushed effect because you have all these open spaces in here that aren't filled in. So the juices from the lip can actually come through these spaces, and it gives you kind of a nice shiny lip, or a blushed lip as people are calling them. So the acupuncture can actually be used. When we were actually testing it, we were drawing the shape of the brow on, going back and forth in a pendulum motion and doing our outline, and then putting numbing cream on after our first pass. So it can be used in the brow, it can be used on the eye, and it can be used on the lip. These are some of the ways that you're going to see it start to being used. I want to do just a little demonstration here, and I want to show you what I mean about the pixeling effect. So as you're doing the pendulum motion and you're coming back and forth, you're just like I said, like an airplane landing, you can actually see the pixeling. Okay, if this was a 1 or a 3 liner that you were doing this with, you would probably be going back and forth and getting stuck, and then coming up, coming down and getting stuck and coming up as you come off of the skin, because the tip of the needle would be so sharp. So with a liner or a shader, this causes a lot of trauma as you would get stuck. You can tell with the acupuncture needle, it's hard. I can't even show you how I'm getting stuck. So if you have an acupuncture needle in and you have that bullet shaped, and you're doing your pendulum technique, you're just going back and forth and back and forth, and you can see how you're creating those dots. Back and forth, back and forth. If this was the front of a brow, you could do the front very lightly, come back through, do the brow, do the tail, do a little bit more along the spine line, make this a little bit darker through here, but it's just really back and forth, back and forth. And you can see how light and airy you can make the top. So let's go ahead and I'll just wipe this off real quick. This is just a really quick demonstration. But you can see here what happens when you get stuck, and I was trying really hard to get stuck. You can see those little dots. And if you look at the pendulum, see how nice and clean that is? You have a nice pendulum swing. Let's take off the brow here. I hope the lighting is good enough for this. I hope you guys can see this. Molly, you might be able to adjust that lighting a little bit better. But this was the brow that I just did. So you can see how light and airy that is. You can see it's darker down along the spine line. There we go. Does that help? Can you see that a little bit better? So you can actually see the pixeling effect of the acupuncture needle. And with that, you'll be able to do, like I said, the brow, the eye, if you're doing a stardust eye, or a lip, and you're not going to get caught. So what does that mean? That means that using the acupuncture or the bullet-shaped needle, you're going to have less trauma to the skin. You're going to implant ink. You're going to have less swelling, quicker healing time, and you're going to have a happy patient and good results. So that's just a real quick recap about what the acupuncture needle is. And we'll have more videos that'll be coming out in the near future. Thanks.